images of the destruction in the Philippines. The world is now getting a closer look at the damage as more than 600,000 people desperately seek shelter. New estimates say Super Typhoon Haiyan affected more than 10 million people. The death toll is staggering. It's estimated that more than 10,000 people have been killed. Bodies line the streets in the central Philippines. Thousands more believed to be buried in the rubble. And aid is pouring in from all over the world tonight, including the United States. Dozens of countries are sending cash and supplies to the region. The biggest need right now, food, shelter, and fresh water. The city of Tacloban was hardest hit by the typhoon. It's there where authorities expect to find most of the dead. Also hard hit was Cebu City, and that's where we find reporter Craig Leeson. He's on the telephone. Craig, tell us what the biggest challenge is for the government right now.
Well, the biggest challenge is getting the food aid to the people who most need it. And I'm standing right now at the Mactan Edwin Air Force Base, and I'm watching right in front of me an international cargo transporter, an Antonov, pulling in just 150 meters away from me, loaded with relief supplies, international help on its way, and it has been streaming in over the past day. To the immediate right of that is a Philippines Air Force C-130, and there are three of these. They've been going in and out all day. One just took off about 5 minutes ago. The next one came in. They're now loading that up with supplies and unloading some of the survivors who have been taken to the hospital for the help that they need.
Craig, talk about the reports of widespread looting and how that might impact the efforts to provide aid to the people there.
I didn't quite catch that question, but what I can tell you is that they certainly have their hands full here trying to not only find survivors, but as we mentioned, get the aid that is here into Tacloban and out to the areas that need it. They're also, the main problem they've got with doing that is combating the looters that have been taking some of that aid. There were reports of the bridge which linked two of these islands, looters holding up some of the aid trucks and taking that aid before it even reached Tacloban and the people that need it. Government forces are now on the ground and trying to stop that problem. And the President, Aquino, says that he's pretty sure they'll have that under control very shortly.
Is there enough international aid coming in right now?
Yes, there's plenty of international aid. We're seeing a lot of aid coming in from the US, non-government organizations, filling in with everything from food to shelters to blankets to sanitation devices, even body bags to combat the massive problem they've got in Leyte Island, which was the worst hit of this region, where bodies are still lying in the street. And after 4 days now since the typhoon hit, so they're decomposing, they're causing major problems for health officials there, and for those that are still trying to find food, water, and their own shelter.
They said that the official number is around 10,000 dead. Are they holding to that number at this point?
Well, actually, the official number is only about 900 people, and that's because the Philippine government doesn't count somebody dead until they've identified them and tagged them. And that's been an almost impossible task here because there are so many bodies that most of them haven't been identified. There are reports that in one area alone there were 300 bodies that had been carried to one particular government building ready for identification. So the estimate is that it's 10,000 plus, and that comes from the governor of Leyte Island himself, who believes that that figure will rise to anywhere between 20 and 30,000 people.
What about the search and rescue operation? Are they finding survivors?
They're still finding survivors, and when they get to them, of course, the difficulty is getting the food and aid to them. And that's one of the problems. The U.S. government, the Pacific, has promised the support. The Pacific Command, and in fact has mobilized the Pacific Command. 90 of Marines arrived here yesterday. They've been sending a forward command unit. They're also sending Orion Fox planes to help them get into these areas. Those aircraft have the ability to lift and to land and take off vertically, which is what they need here because there's so much debris on the ground that it's almost impossible to get any other vehicle, whether it be land-based or air-based. They have managed to clear the airport at Tacloban, so they are getting the C-130 helicopters in there. But that's about it for this province. Everywhere else needs a helicopter, and in some places there aren't even places that they can put them down because the debris is just stacked so high.
Craig Leeson is in Cebu. Craig, thanks very much for your reporting. Now, Lynette Lim is in the communications manager for Save the Children. She was near Tacloban when the typhoon hit and was able to see the damage right after the storm. From Manila via Skype, Lynette described to me what she saw.
Well, yes, the storm hit at about 5:30 that morning, 3.5 hours ahead of the forecasted time. It was quite dark outside, and with heavy rain and strong winds, it was quite frightening. And I could imagine how frightening it must have been for the young children who were in evacuation centers or at home. The debris was flying everywhere, and it was hitting on the glass, and we could see glass shattering in our building and the buildings around us. We saw houses with their roofs being ripped off, electrical lines going down, trees fallen, and cars being overturned.
How long did it last?
It lasted for a full 6 hours. So it started from 5:30 that morning. At 6:30, an hour later, the cell reception went off, and then an hour after that, the radio signals went down, and finally, it was only at 11:30 do we feel safe enough to go outside.
Was there flooding in your area?
Yes, there was a storm surge of about 1 meter to 1.5 meters, and neighbors from around us came over because we were on the second story. We hadn't even realized that there was a storm surge because we were hiding under tables, hearing that the ceiling was about to fall on us. So when they knocked on our door for us to let them in, that's when we saw the storm surge and strong currents that came with it.
How'd you get out and get back to Manila?
Well, I got on a military plane. We were unable to make contact with head office in order to bring the relief supplies that were so needed for the children and the families that were severely affected. With absolutely nothing left in their possession. So we had to send someone back in order to coordinate the relief effort and communicate the situation on the ground.
So we're very familiar in this country with Save the Children. What sort of work are you doing to help the people in the Philippines?
Well, Save the Children was the first aid agency on the ground. We now have 2 officers operational in Leyte Island itself. We're bringing in relief from 3 different routes, going by land from Manila and going by sea from Cebu, and also flying in relief items as much as possible. We're trying to reach people with medical supplies, shelter items, so that children can feel safe at night with something over their heads. We're also trying to bring in hygiene items because these places have extremely unsanitary conditions. I witnessed children openly defecating, and there was no areas to dispose of any waste. There was just waste everywhere in the evacuation center itself. The smell was intolerable even by Saturday midday. And we're also trying to bring in clean water supplies through trucking systems to ensure that children, their families have clean water.
We're hearing about at least 10,000 people may be dead. What did you see? Did you see lots of bodies as you returned home?
Yes, just on Friday, just stepping outside, families were putting out dead people along the side of the street, waiting for rescuers to pick them up. And throughout the days that followed, more dead bodies were recovered and also laid by the side of the road, waiting for rescuers to pick them up. On Saturday midday, when we went to the Tacloban City Council, we heard that about 200 bodies had been picked up, with many more expected to follow, as there was a lot of debris and bodies expected under those debris.
We've heard reports of looting. Have you seen any looting there?
Yes, certainly. On Saturday morning, when we stepped outside to talk to children, children and families were telling Save the Children staff that they had nothing to eat since the storm had hit. Of course, the government officials themselves in these areas were incapacitated as well and could not serve the people as they had prepared to do so. These families then resorted to looting. By midday. They went to grocery stores, provision shops, they went to pharmacies as well as large department stores and took everything they could with them.
Well, Lynette, we appreciate the information that you provided us, and good luck with your work in the Philippines. Thanks very much.